In Spain, it's a different story because what would happen is that all the men would be replaced, okay? So the Y chromosome is the male chromosome. So before the year 2000 BCE, you had a lot of blue, right? But as you can see, if you move further, it's all gone. They killed all the men in Spain. When they went to India, it's a different story because Indians in that time were more peaceful. So they came to a settlement where the new conquerors would be at the top society and the people would be, and the locals would be at the bottom, okay? So there wasn't that much of a genocide, but we had a caste system created because of that, okay? And we know because if you look at the upper caste, they all spoke Indo-European. If you look at the lower caste people, they spoke the local language, Dravidian. Okay? Does that make sense? So depending on the circumstance, the result is different, all right? Okay, this is a wonderful book called The Horse, the Wheel, and Language, written by David Anthony, who's a Harvard anthropologist. And he explains to us the Maya culture and why they were so dominant, okay? So one thing that is unique to the Yamnaya is their mythology. It's a mythology of violence, of struggle, of dominance, of conquest, okay? And how the mythology works is, in the beginning, there were two brothers, twins. One named Man and the other named Twin. They go around by the world and they're accompanied by a great cow. Eventually, Man and Twin decide to create the world we now inhabit. To do this, Man had to sacrifice Twin, okay? He had to kill his own brother, the person he loved, in order to create the world. And the gods thanked him for that. The gods blessed him for that, okay? So this is a world that is pretty violent, okay? After the world was made, the sky gods gave cattle to third man. The cattle were stolen by a three-headed, six-eyed serpent, okay? The snake. Third man entreated the storm god to help get the cattle back. Together, they went to the cattle. The monsters killed it and freed the cattle, okay? So this is a mythology of struggle, okay? And what's really interesting is that this mythology becomes the mythology of all new Proto-Indo-European civilizations, including the Romans and the Mongolians, okay? So this is Genghis Khan. His mythology is what? He kills his best friend to become the leader of the Mongol people. And what's the Roman mythology? Romulus kills his twin brother to found Rome, okay? All right? So that shows you that the Mongols and the Romans, they come from the same culture, okay? A culture based on violence and exploitation. All right, so now Anthony talks about the economy. Domesticated cattle and sheep started a revolutionary change in how humans exploited the Pontic Caspian steppe environment. Because cattle and sheep were cultured like humans, they were part of everyday work and worry in a way never approached by wild animals. Humans identify with their cattle and sheep, wrote poetry about them, and used them as currency in marriage gifts, debt payments, and the calculation of social status. Okay? Now we have the beginning of money and property, right? And they were grass processors. They converted plains of grass, useless and even hostile to humans, into wool, fat, clothing, tents, milk, yogurt, cheese, meat, marrow, and bone. Foundation of both life and wealth. Cattle and sheep herds can grow rapidly with a little luck. Vulnerable to bad weather and theft, they can also decline rapidly. Herding was a volatile, boom-bust economy and required a flexible, opportunistic social organization. So they live in a world of tremendous volatility because the entire world was a cattle. If the cattle died because of a bad storm or because of bad luck, they were completely screwed, okay? So they were very aggressive people and they were opportunistic as well. That's different from farmers who can just afford to sit back and relax because nature will grow the food for them. Okay, the connection between animals, brothers, and power was a foundation on which new forms of male-centered ritual and politics developed among Indo-European speaking societies. This is why the cow and brothers occupied such a central place in Indo-European myths relating to how the world began, okay? So this is a deeply patriarchal society, all right? All right, participation in long-distance trade, gift exchange, and a new set of cults requiring public sacrifices and feasting became the foundation for a new social power. Stock breeding is by nature a volatile economy. Herders who lose animals always borrow from those who still have them. Social obligations associated with these loans are institutionalized among the world's pastoralists as a basis for a fluid system of status distinctions. Those who loan animals acquired power over those who borrow them, and those who sponsored fees obligate their guests. Early Proto-Indo-European included a vocabulary about verbal contracts bound by oaths used in later religious rituals to specify the obligations between the weak and the strong, okay? All right, so the idea here is there's no slavery in the system, okay? But there is obligation, there's loyalty. If I take you out for a meal, guess what? Now you owe me a meal. If I take you out for a meal, I'm now your big brother. And that's what keeps the society cohesive. And this is important because if no one's a slave and everyone's free, then everyone is a great warrior because you're fighting for yourself. Okay? You're not fighting because someone asked you to. And that's why in wars between empires and these people usually win, okay? Because they're much more motivated. All right, wealth, military power, and a more productive herding system probably brought prestige and power to the identities associated with Proto-Indo-European dialects after 33 BCE. The guest host institution extended the protections of oath-bound obligations to new social groups an Indo-European speaking patron could accept and integrate outsiders as clients without shaming them or assigning them permanently to submissive roles as long as they conducted the sacrifices properly. Praise poetry at public feasts encouraged patrons to be generous and validated the language of the songs as a vehicle for communication with the gods who regulated everything, okay? So another way of saying this is that even though there are wealthy people and poor people, they are still treated with respect, okay? It's a very egalitarian society. And what keeps the system in place is the belief in the gods, okay? The belief that if I do you a favor, then you owe me a favor. We have a contract now. The gods oversee the contracts. And what's really important is that this is an open-ended system. So it's easy for me to bring in more people into this system, okay? And that's why, again, they were such an innovative, cohesive, and open society. Okay, the last thing we'll talk about are these young men who enter secret societies, okay? And they enter societies and become like this mafia gangs, okay? The institution of the Moribund, the warrior brotherhood of young men bound by oath to one another and to ancestors during a ritually mandated raid has been reconstructed as a central part of Proto-Indo-European initiation rituals, okay? It's a very important part of society because these young men otherwise have no place to go. And if you want to know who they are, they're basically the Vikings, okay? So the Vikings are the direct descendants of these people. All right. So let's talk about the Mongols. The Mongols conquered the world, most of the world, and the question is, how did they do it, okay? And I've already told the answer, okay? Because the steppe people have always been good at conquering empires. These are the Mongols. The secret weapon, of course, is a horse archer. This is like the ultimate weapon for most of human history. You could not defend against a horse archer. They were fast, they were strong, and these were the best warriors in the world. So this has been a consistent pattern in human history. First, the Yamnai came and conquered Europe, India, and Iran. But then you have the Scythians, okay? Same place, same people, same culture. Guys, this is not a race of people. This is a culture of people, okay? Because remember, at this time in human history, genetic exchange is very common. The Scythians were dominant, and you have the Medians, who would later on give rise to the Persian Empire, okay? Oops. Okay. And you had, sorry, can you see this? Okay, so now what's gonna happen is this.